I never thought I'd see Denzel Washington walk into a press room flanked by attorneys, but that's exactly what happened last Thursday. The cameras flashed like lightning as he stepped up to the podium, his expression calm but razor-sharp. "Good morning," he said, glancing at the rows of stunned journalists. "Today, I'm filing a lawsuit against Senator J.D. Vance for $100 million. Gasps echoed through the room. He held up a thick folder. "Inside here is documented proof of what I believe to be coordinated defamation, reckless endangerment, and an intentional attempt to silence my voice through political manipulation." The air felt electric. But no one expected what came next. Denzel didn't speak with rage. He spoke with control. Every word was weighted, carefully delivered. "This isn't about politics. This is about truth. And after today, some of that truth is going to come out." Journalists erupted with questions, but he turned and walked away, leaving everyone stunned, including J.D. Vance, who hadn't even heard the worst of it yet. J.D. Vance's camp scrambled within hours. His spokesperson released a brief, tense statement. "Senator Vance denies all allegations made by Mr. Washington and looks forward to addressing this baseless lawsuit in court." But behind the scenes, it was panic. Denzel's legal team had already filed the 200-page complaint in federal court. The core accusation? That Vance, through private connections with a powerful media pack, had greenlit a coordinated smear campaign targeting Denzel's charitable work and personal reputation, right as Denzel was preparing to launch a nationwide civic education initiative. It wasn't just gossip. The documents cited anonymous whistleblowers, email threads, and recorded phone calls. One leaked message, sent by a PAC advisor, read, "We can't let Denzel become the voice of integrity in this election cycle. Discredit the foundation. Find the dirt. Or make some." That line alone lit up social media. #StandWithDenzel began trending. By the evening, CNN's Anderson Cooper aired a segment titled, "Why Would a Sitting Senator Target Denzel Washington?" But while the public reacted, J.D. Vance sat down with his closest allies for an emergency call, and that's when something leaked that made the situation spiral. That night, a confidential audio clip was anonymously emailed to 3 major news outlets, each from a different untraceable sender. Within hours, it was verified and aired. In the recording, J.D. Vance is heard speaking on a private fundraising call. "He's just an actor. Sure, he's smart, but if he starts sticking his nose in voter mobilization and calling out dark money, we'll make sure he regrets it." Nobody remembers a broken hero. The backlash was immediate. Denzel's name shot to the top of trending lists. Hollywood insiders, educators, veterans, and even former political opponents began releasing public statements in his support. And while Vance's staff claimed the recording was heavily edited, a second file dropped the next morning, this time video. Crystal clear. Same words. Same smug tone. By noon, several Senate colleagues quietly distanced themselves from Vance, issuing generic tweets about integrity in public service. Meanwhile, Denzel remained silent. Until he posted a single photo. A close-up of his father's dog tags, resting on the same desk where the lawsuit papers had been signed. The caption read, "Some truths are worth defending." J.D. Vance wasn't just in legal trouble now, he was losing control of the narrative. The ripple effect hit Congress like a wave. Journalists swarmed Capitol Hill, and Vance couldn't go 10 feet without being bombarded by microphones. "Senator, do you deny the voice on the tape is yours? Why target Mr. Washington's foundation? Is this retaliation for his civic campaign?" Vance dodged every question. "This is a smear job," he snapped. A distraction orchestrated by Hollywood elites trying to interfere with American politics. But behind closed doors, his own party was growing uneasy. An internal GOP memo leaked, revealing that several high-profile donors had suspended contributions, citing optics concerns and unwanted heat. Then came the second blow. An investigative journalist from The Guardian published a report confirming that one of Vance's largest super PAC donors had previously lobbied against education initiatives in inner-city communities, initiatives that Denzel had directly funded and promoted. The dots were connecting. And people were watching. Denzel, meanwhile, appeared unexpectedly at a youth center in Chicago, shaking hands and quietly encouraging students. Cameras captured him smiling with a group of teens beside a mural reading, "Speak truth. Even when your voice shakes." He gave no interviews. Just one brief sentence before leaving, "I've said what I needed to say. The court will handle the rest." But the public wasn't finished. The next morning, a Senate hearing took a sudden turn, when one of Vance's fellow senators broke ranks live on air. During a routine Senate oversight hearing, something unexpected happened. Senator Karen Mallory, a longtime colleague of J.D. Vance and generally known for party loyalty, paused mid-questioning and addressed the elephant in the room. "I wasn't planning to say this," she began, her voice steady, "but after reviewing the leaked materials, and listening to the recordings myself, I have to ask, are we okay with one of our own threatening a private citizen, especially one as respected as Mr. Washington, for simply using his voice?" Gasps echoed through the chamber. The C-SPAN live feed caught every word. Vance shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mallory wasn't done. "I've disagreed with Denzel Washington on policy. But I've never doubted his integrity or love for this country. If we're going to attack people for engaging voters and encouraging critical thought, then we've lost our way." A murmur of applause, rare in such a setting, broke out from the audience gallery. Vance's camp tried to spin it as grandstanding, but the damage was done. News outlets declared it a turning point. That night, MSNBC's Rachel Maddow aired a special segment titled, "The Moment J.D. Vance Lost the Room." Meanwhile, Denzel's legal team filed a motion requesting the unsealing of key documents, emails between Vance's PAC advisors and third-party firms known for digital misinformation campaigns. If granted, it could expose far more than just defamation. One political analyst summed it up, "This isn't just a lawsuit anymore. This is the opening act of a reckoning." The court granted the motion. Within 48 hours, hundreds of internal emails were unsealed, many of them damning. One in particular, dated 2 months before the public fallout, read, "Washington's foundation is gaining too much traction in swing states. We need to muddy the waters. Feed doubts. Use soft language, don't attack directly. Make it feel organic." That phrase, "make it feel organic," would soon haunt J.D. Vance like a ghost. Late-night hosts ran with it. Protest signs popped up in D.C. and Atlanta with the slogan, "Nothing about this feels organic." But the real shift came when a former campaign data consultant, anonymously identified in the court filings as Witness C, stepped forward publicly. Her identity, Megan Laird, a former digital strategist who once worked for Vance's media team. In a nationally broadcast interview, Megan revealed, "We were told to create fake Twitter accounts, push targeted narratives about Denzel Washington's finances, and link him to fabricated scandals. I knew it was wrong. I kept copies. And I'm ready to testify." That interview aired on a Friday night. By Saturday morning, the hashtag Denzel Deserves Justice had racked up over 12 million uses. Even some of Vance's conservative allies began to call for an ethics investigation. A few whispered the unthinkable, resignation. And through it all, Denzel remained steady. No press tours. No theatrics. Just quiet confidence, and a message posted to his foundation's website, "Let the truth speak. That's all I've ever asked." But the most explosive revelation was still to come, one buried deep in the files that Denzel's team hadn't released, yet, the final document drop hit like a political earthquake. Buried in the cache was a confidential memo from a lobbying firm directly tied to J.D. Vance's campaign, titled, "Target Profile, Denzel Washington, Neutralize Before Launch." It wasn't just strategy. It was a blueprint for sabotage. Pages outlined plans to undermine public trust in Denzel's educational nonprofit quietly fund opposition research into his family, leak false accusations to sympathetic outlets under anonymous tips, manipulate online search results to associate his name with political extremism. The memo even listed a cost analysis for how much it would take to permanently damage his influence in key voter blocks. The figure, $1.2 million. News of the memo hit Sunday morning. By noon, bipartisan outrage spilled across every network. Senator Mallory returned to the airwaves, this time calling for a full Senate ethics probe. This goes beyond defamation. This is a deliberate, orchestrated abuse of power. J.D. Vance released a brief statement that night, visibly shaken on camera. I was unaware of certain actions taken by consultants and external advisors. If any overstep occurred, it did not have my approval. But the public wasn't buying it anymore. That same night, Denzel finally spoke live. He stood on the steps of a Philadelphia courthouse, flanked by veterans, teachers, and young activists. His voice was calm, measured, but unshakable. They tried to erase me with algorithms, lies, and fear. But I've never needed a title to lead. And I've never needed permission to speak the truth. Cheers erupted from the crowd. The video went viral in minutes. J.D. Vance's approval ratings plummeted. But the biggest blow was still waiting. In the courtroom, just days away, the courtroom was packed. Not just with reporters and lawyers, but with teachers, community leaders, and veterans who had quietly flown in just to support Denzel. No red carpet, no VIP treatment. Just presence. Denzel entered calmly, dressed in a navy suit, no entourage. J.D. Vance, on the other hand, appeared tense, flanked by attorneys and glancing nervously at the cameras outside the courthouse. Opening arguments began, but it was the evidence that stunned everyone. Denzel's legal team presented verified metadata tracing fake social media accounts, ones that pushed rumors about his charity, back to a consulting firm retained by Vance's campaign. They showed a paper trail, payments, strategy memos, and internal approval from top advisors. Then came Megan Laird's live testimony. Under oath, she described phone calls in which Vance personally approved digital attack strategies. She quoted him directly, "He wants to play activist, fine. Let's show him how politics really works." J.D. Vance's lawyers tried to paint her as a disgruntled former employee. But she had receipts, call logs, emails, even voice memos saved from internal Slack meetings. Then came the surprise. Denzel took the stand. It was unusual for a plaintiff in a civil case to testify so early, but his lawyers knew what they were doing. "I'm not here to play a victim," he told the jury. "I've played soldiers, cops, kings, and fathers. But I've never had to play a citizen, until now. Because what happened wasn't just personal. It was a warning to anyone who tries to stand up without the system's permission." He paused. The courtroom was silent. "But I don't need permission. I've got the Constitution." The judge called a recess, but the tone had shifted. This was no longer about just money, it was about reckoning. The media dubbed it, the trial that shook the Senate. By the third day, J.D. Vance's team had pivoted entirely. No more outright denials, instead, they leaned into plausible deniability. "Yes, unfortunate things happened," one attorney said, "but there is no direct evidence that Senator Vance ordered or approved any malicious conduct." That defense crumbled fast. The prosecution introduced a never-before-seen internal memo, signed by Vance himself, greenlighting digital countermeasures against high-visibility opposition influencers. Denzel's name was handwritten in the margin. Jurors took note. Cameras outside rolled non-stop. Inside the courtroom, Denzel remained composed, never raising his voice, even when grilled during cross-examination. When asked why he didn't just ignore the attacks, he answered plainly, "Because I'm not here for me. I'm here so the next person doesn't get buried by silence." His words rippled far beyond the courtroom. Educators and civil rights organizations began holding solidarity rallies across the country. Celebrities donated publicly to Denzel's foundation. Meanwhile, rumors swirled on the Hill, staff resignations, donor withdrawals, and whispers that a few Senate Ethics Committee members were quietly preparing a formal rebuke of Vance. Then came the testimony that would seal it all. A surprise witness, a former Senate staffer who had worked briefly with Vance's office. He stepped forward under federal protection and said under oath, not only did Senator Vance know what was happening, he called it necessary damage control. I heard it with my own ears. The courtroom fell silent. And outside, as thunderclouds formed above the Capitol, it became clear, something bigger than a lawsuit was about to break loose. The verdict came down on a gray Friday afternoon. After only 6 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. The courtroom held its breath as the foreperson stood. We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Mr. Denzel Washington. J.D. Vance stared straight ahead. And award compensatory and punitive damages in the amount of $100 million. Gasps. Applause outside the courtroom. A storm of reporters rushing to break the news. But Denzel didn't smile. He simply closed his eyes for a moment, nodded once, and quietly thanked the judge. At the press conference afterward, he stood before the microphones, not as an actor, but as an American who had fought and won. This isn't a win for me, he said, it's a message. You don't get to silence someone just because they make you uncomfortable. You don't get to weaponize influence against truth. Not anymore. When asked what he planned to do with the $100 million, Denzel didn't hesitate. Every cent will go into building civic education programs, legal defense funds, and leadership training for underrepresented voices. They came for one. They woke up thousands. The headlines exploded. Denzel Washington's victory marks political earthquake. J.D. Vance faces ethics review following lawsuit loss. From actor to advocate, Denzel sparks national reform movement. Within days, multiple senators called for Vance to step down. A bipartisan ethics panel opened an investigation. And as the dust settled, Denzel returned, not to Hollywood, but to a community center in Detroit, shaking hands with teens and teachers, wearing no suit, no cameras in sight. He was never chasing the spotlight. He was protecting the truth. And now, the nation was watching differently.